Australia-Sinim.avi from Brit-Am, movement of the 10 tribes of Israel. In this present talk we are going to talk about Australia, the land of Sinim according to the Bible. Australia is mentioned in the Bible, Australia is mentioned in the book of Isaiah. Australia is mentioned as one of the places to which the lost 10 tribes went. It is mentioned as one of the places from which the lost 10 tribes will return. Australia is, in the Bible, is termed the land of Sinim, S-I-N-I-M, Sinim, the Great Southland. And this is one of the places that Isaiah, chapter 49, verse 12, tells us that the lost 10 tribes will return from. The people of Australia are mainly descended from West European stock, especially from the Isles of Britain, including Ireland and the British Isles in general, and also other areas in Western Europe. And it follows that if the people of Australia are descended from the lost tribes of Israel, so too are their kith and kin overseas, their kith and kin in the British Isles, in Western Europe and in North America. And we have other proofs, we have additional proofs, we have proofs that tie in with this. We have proofs proving that the peoples of Western Europe are from the 10 tribes of Israel, or at the very least, the 10 tribes are amongst them, and in those areas we must search for the lost 10 tribes, in those areas that they are the places where the lost 10 tribes are to be found in. And we have numerous proofs of this. We have proofs from the Bible, we also have proofs from secular sources, from history, from archaeology, from linguistics. And all of these additional proofs we will go into later, or we have gone into them on our website in numerous articles and in our books that we have published, and also in additional researches that, God willing, we will publish in the future. And there is a lot of evidence about this, and taken all together as a whole complex of interlocking proofs and evidence, this evidence is irrefutable. You cannot deny it. The 10 tribes of Israel are amongst Western peoples, and they do not know who they are. And it was prophesied that they would lose their identity and not know who they are and not know who their ancestors were. But in these end times, they will be told, they must know, they must come to know about the Israelite ancestry. And that is what Brit-Am movement of the 10 tribes of Israel sets out to do. That is what we set out to do. That is one of our tasks, telling the lost tribes of Israel who they are, and researching it. Research and recognition and revelation. They are the 3 R's of Brit-Am. Brit-Am movement of the 10 tribes of Israel. Research means finding who the lost 10 tribes are, searching biblical and rabbinical and secular sources to find who the lost 10 tribes are. Recognition means bringing this information to the recognition, revealing it to others, letting others know about it. And the third task that Brit-Am has set itself, Brit-Am movement of the 10 tribes of Israel, is to bring about or enhance the bringing together of the hearts, of the reconciliation between Jews, the Jewish people, Judah, and the state of Israel, in which a good portion of the Jewish people today dwell, together, bringing them together with the Western peoples, bringing together an acknowledgement and a closeness, a closer appreciation of each other. These are the tasks of Brit-Am. And as we said, we have proven the lost 10 tribes are amongst Western peoples. We have proven it because the Bible itself says so. The Bible says the lost 10 tribes in the end times will be at the ends of the earth. All of these peoples belong to the ends of the earth. If you look at a map, you look at a globe, we have the land of Israel. We have the land of Israel here in the Middle East. The middle of the Middle East, in the middle of all of the world. In the middle of all the global masses, of all the continental masses of the world, here we have the land of Israel. And here, at the ends of the earth, in the British Isles, in North America, in Australia and New Zealand, and in South Africa, and in other areas in Scandinavia, the very literally speaking, the ends of the earth, they are where we find the lost tribes of Israel. Also in Holland, Belgium, France, and the coasts of France, there too we find the lost tribes of Israel. All of these areas are at the ends of the earth. We also know that a major portion of the lost tribes of Israel would be in the Isles of the Sea. That is where the tribes of Joseph would be found. We identify the tribes of Joseph with the inhabitants of the British Isles, who later colonized North America, Canada and the USA. They also contributed towards the population of South Africa, and they colonized Australia and New Zealand and other areas in the world. Australia and New Zealand were colonized by them. And it follows that if these peoples who we have spoken of are indeed from lost tribes of Israel, so too are their kith and kin in Australia and New Zealand. On the other hand, if we can prove that the lost 10 tribes of Israel, at least a portion of them, are to be found in Australia, so too does the same evidence apply to their kith and kin amongst Western peoples. So we see how these different areas of evidence, these different proofs, tie in to each other and reinforce each other. And Isaiah 49:12 says that the lost tribes will return from Sinim, and we have biblical codes that very strongly, as may be seen on our website www.Brit-Am.org. We have there lists of Bible codes examinations that we did proving that the land of Sinim, where the lost tribes will return from, means Australia. We have other proofs, as we shall show in this present talk. The land of Sinim, where the lost tribes will return from, or one of the areas from which the lost tribes will return, is Australia. What applies to Australia applies also to New Zealand, and also applies to other areas whose ancestors are related to the present-day white inhabitants of Australia. In Isaiah chapter 49, if you go to it, and we'll read it out, we'll quote from it. Isaiah 49, beginning from verse 8, says, "In an acceptable time I have heard you, in the day of salvation I have helped you. I will preserve you and give you as a covenant to the people, to restore the earth, to cause them to inherit the desolate heritages." So this relates to Australia and North America. Covenant of the people, he says that the lost tribes, he's speaking to the lost tribes of Israel, as is confirmed by rabbinical sources. The sages said this verse, these segments of Isaiah are referring to the 10 tribes of Israel as to where they will be in the end times. And also the simple meaning of the verses, if you read them out in their context, they also suggest this, that these verses are referring to the lost tribes of Israel. The lost tribes of Israel were that portion, the majority of the Israelite tribes who were taken into captivity by the Assyrians. They lost their identity, they disappeared. We don't know what happened to them, and rather people did not know what happened to them. But history says that they were lost, they lost their identity. Rabbinical sources and also the Bible itself says that in the end times they will return, that they have a task to play in history, and they did play their task. The Bible describes their task, describes where they will be in the end times, and from all of these indications we can determine who the lost 10 tribes are, where they are, and we have found that they are amongst Western peoples. And from the Isles of Britain, and by Britain I include Ireland. Ireland is very important, and all of the inhabitants of Britain, also Western Europe. From there they were colonists to settle other areas, and they colonized the earth. They rehabilitated desolate areas. They settled in places that had been, relatively speaking, underpopulated and abandoned, and were given over to people who, culturally speaking, were not in an advanced era. They did not develop the land in an intensive way. They did not support large numbers of people, and they did not play a role in world history until the Israelite nations, the descendants of English-speaking peoples, came to them, settled in them, and increased and multiplied upon them. And we were told that the lost tribes would be in these areas. They would be to the north and to the west of the land of Israel. They would be in the Isles of the Sea, meaning in the British Isles. And if you look here, we have a globe. We see the land of Israel in the Middle East, in the middle of the world, the middle of the continental masses. And to the north and to the west, we find the British Isles, and we find North America. And the Isles of the Sea, we find them in the British Isles, and also we found the thighs of the earth in North America, as we have explained elsewhere. To the south and east we find Australia and New Zealand. And it says that I will give you as a covenant to the people. Covenant of the people in Hebrew, Brit-Am. Brit-Am, that is where we take the name of our movement from. Brit-Am also reminds us of Britain and America, and also reminds us of a name for Britain. The Isle of Britain, or the Islands of Britain, the British Isles, in the Middle Ages could sometimes be referred to as Brit-Amia. In other words, Brit-Am, Brit-Amia, that is a direct link between the two. Not only that, but also in Hebrew, in some dialects, in the northern dialects, sometimes the M sound at the end of a word, a suffix, could be switched for an N. So Brit-Am could originally have been Brit-Amia. At all events, the names are similar and they do suggest something. It says it will restore the earth, to rehabilitate the earth, to cause them to inherit the desolate heritages, as we said. In verse 9 it says, "You may say to the prisoners, go forth, to those who are in darkness, show yourselves, they shall feed along the roads, and their pastures shall be on all desolated heights." It says to say to the prisoners, go forth. The British, when they colonised North America and later Australia, they used convicts. They settled convicts on the land, and these convicts, people who have been convicted for different crimes. Sometimes these crimes were quite serious, sometimes they were only petty by our standards, only relatively small scales of crimes. But to get rid of this unwanted criminal class, or people with a rebellious disposition, the British would send them off to these areas that they were colonising, and they would have them work on farms and in plantations and different projects. At the end of their time of servitude, they would usually be given land. They would be given a plot of land and encouraged to settle in the area where they had been sent to, and not to come back home, not to give trouble in the homeland, so to say. This was historically true. It was justified, not justified, a good idea, not a good idea. Some people would say that we should do something today with our criminal classes, who knows. The historical truth is, this is what was done, this is what they did do, and this is what Isaiah indicated the lost tribes would do. This is what Isaiah in chapter 49 says the lost tribes of Israel would do, and this is what they did do. And also says, in verse 10, they shall neither hunger nor thirst, nor neither heat nor sun shall strike them, for he who has mercy on them will lead them. Even by the springs of water he will guide them, and make each of my mountains a road, and my highways shall be elevated. And then he goes on in verse 12, surely these shall come from afar, look, these from the north and the west, and these from the land of Sinim. So we have here, from the land of Israel, from this area in the Middle East of Israel, from the north and to the west, that is northwest Europe, or Western Europe, and north and west further on, North America. That is where we have most of the tribes coming from, or being found in the end times. It also says that we're found in the land of Sinim. What was the land of Sinim? According to translations on the Bible, Aramaic translations and rabbinical commentators, the land of Sinim meant the Great Southland. The name Australia means, in Latin, Southland. Jerome, who translated the Bible into Latin, he translated the land of Sinim as Australis, in other words, Australia. And Jerome, when he translated the Bible, he consulted with Jewish sages, so he in effect can maybe assumed to have been reflecting a rabbinical opinion when he made this translation. The name Australia was named after this, possibly after this reference to the land of Sinim, Australis or Australia. And this is how Australia got its name. Australia is named named after the land of Sinim, in an indirect way. We have indications that in ancient times the existence of Australia was known to Asian peoples. It was known, even though the later states they forgot about it, or it was not known at such a level to derive practical conclusions from it. We know that Pomponius Mela, a Latin writer, Roman writer in 40 CE, reported the terra Australis incognito, unknown Southland. Maps based on the opinion of, or on the works of Pomponius Mela, depict a land in the region of Australia. In other words, the region of Australia must have been known about. We have indications that the Phoenicians knew about it, the Egyptians knew about it, they certainly knew about Indonesia, which is not that far off. The Sumatrans in Sumatra, they received the Phoenician alphabet. They used the Phoenician alphabet. They had quite a developed civilization, and they used an alphabet derived from the Phoenicians, in the same way as the Greeks also took their alphabet from the Phoenicians, and from that we have our modern day alphabet that we use today. And the Indonesians knew about Australia, and we know this, we have proofs of it. We also know that the Indonesians were in contact with the Phoenicians, so we may put one and one together and get a conclusion that the Phoenicians possibly knew about Australia. We have other evidence. Also, the Egyptians may have known about Australia. We have the people, the Aborigines in Australia, the native inhabitants of Australia, who were very primitive people. But there are indications that they were not so primitive as they later became. At one stage they were more advanced than they later were than they are now. And they may have derived from the Middle East. People similar to them are found in the Middle East. There are certain legends, certain indications that they came from the Middle East. They have the native dog, the Australian dog called the dingo, is similar to the Canaanite dog. Probably derived from him. The Kilaba Kanani, which is also found in the land of Israel and found throughout the Middle East. It may have given rise to the dingo dog, the dog which the Australian Aborigines used, and there are other indications that the Aborigines of Australia originally came from the Middle East area, and they were possibly transported there by the Egyptians. They may have come from Egypt, as Craig White has suggested. Craig White is a researcher on the peoples of the world, and he also suggested that the Australian Aborigines came from Egypt, and if so, Isaiah would have known about them, and the prophets of the Bible knew what was going on. We have a lot of knowledge in the Bible. The prophets, the people who wrote the books of the prophecy in the Bible, who were inspired by God Almighty to write prophecy, they were surprisingly well informed of everything, of all the knowledge that was available in their time and more. You see, the divine providence had guided them and shown them how to achieve this knowledge, this recognition of the facts. So Isaiah said that part of the 10 tribes when they return will return from the land of Sinim, and the land of Sinim means the region of Australia. And we have also confirmed this by biblical codes and other evidence, some of which will be found on our website or in books that we have written. Go to our website www.Brit-Am.org, Brit-Am.org, and you will find more proofs in this direction. We've also written a poem concerning Australia, the land of Sinim in Australia, and we'll read this poem out because it reflects, more or less goes back on what we have spoken to you about, but it gives it in a more aesthetic manner, in a more pleasing manner, as if to say. So this is a poem we have written on the land of Sinim and Australia. Isaiah 49 verse 8 speaks of a day of salvation, predicts lost Israelite fate, to receive divine preservation, a covenant people, all Brit-Am, as was promised to Abraham. Isaiah 49 verse 9 tells of freeing the prison bound, to raise sheep and cattle kine, colony of Australia was found. First settlement in Sydney town, township on Australia's ground, to raise up those who are down. Isaiah 49 verse 12 says they will return from afar. They who in Scripture dwell will be shown just who they are, coming from west and north, Britain and North America lands. Mighty nations have come forth, sea numerous as the sands, so too from east and south. New Zealand is the place predicted by Isaiah's mouth, founded by the British race. Decent beer and good wine, Australia is the antipodes. Land of Sinim and sunshine, proven in Brit-Am Bible codes. Proofs concerning Country 1, applying ancestral family ties, belong to brothers under other skies. The tribes of nation Israel begun are to be found as natural allies, who fought the enemy and won. This includes the Anzac Blues, land of gum trees and much sun, freedom and dignity to choose, good work, sports and booze. This is a great Hebrew clan, destined to rule the world wide, united together as one man. Their ancestry no longer to hide, coming from Britain and Erin, Scandinavia and land of Finn, Holland, Belgium and France. Everyone deserves a chance. Helvetia, USA and Canada too, Jerusalem and the Israeli Jew. Diggers from down under, together with Kiwi males, warriors tough as nails, full of hope and wonder. They shall return to Bible law, come back to what was lost, regain the land they foresaw, regretfully realizing the cost, to a sacrifice and atone for guilt. The temple shall be rebuilt. Borders from Euphrates to Nile, Cyprus, Lebanon and Syria, they shall make it worthwhile. Amend the captivity of Assyria. Thank you very much. This is Yair Davidi speaking to you from Jerusalem, Israel, on behalf of Brit-Am, the movement of the 10 tribes of Israel. Thank you.